Good evening.
Good to meet you.
It is really, really good to see you all. So thank you for coming out tonight. I think tonight is going to be fabulous. My name's Mike McCormick Hunnelman. I am the Neighborhood Outreach Manager here for the city, and welcome to the Neighborhood Leadership Gathering tonight. I wanted to give you a brief history of neighborhood leadership gatherings, and I'll sum it up this way. We have been doing these gatherings now for 5 years. And what's interesting about the gatherings is we meet twice a year, often in October and in February, and we have a community conversation. And it's normally around a different topic each time, but what we hear from residents provides really meaningful input that helps shape what happens in the city. And let me give you a couple examples of that. We had a conversation about how are we investing in the next generation of community leaders. And out of that came some thinking and the development of Bellevue Essentials program to train new civic leaders. We had a conversation about public safety in neighborhoods. And out of that information helped inform the city as it contemplated, do we or do we not reinstate the bike unit for police? We had a conversation about neighborhood character, how to preserve what we care about in neighborhoods while we adapt to the changes of how we're growing. And that informed how the city and council ultimately adopted a comprehensive plan that included a chapter specifically on neighborhoods. We had a conversation about transportation issues in neighborhoods and cut-through traffic and making neighborhoods safer. And that informed the decision that was made to go out to voters for the neighborhood levy. And the voters unanimously said, or majority said, yes, we want that, right? I know it wasn't unanimous. But these conversations are important conversations. They're constructive conversations. And I really thank you for coming out tonight to be part of that as we continue in that vein. And who knows where what we talk about leads next. I'm going to give you a schedule for tonight. The evening schedule and how this is going to run looks something like this. We're going to have some welcoming and opening remarks. And we're going to be able then to listen to City Manager Brad Miyake as he shares about some of the reflections that he had going out into the community over this summer. That's some of the things that he heard. We're going to have our panel here of leadership from different departments of the city share and do brief presentations of things that are of interest pertaining to their departments. That'll go on for about 30 minutes. And then in this room, during that time, what I want you to do is write down on the yellow cards the questions that are on your mind. So you might hear something tonight where you're like, oh, I have a question. You might have come into tonight with a question. Write it down on these cards, and our staff, our neighborhood outreach staff, will be collecting those cards so that when we finish with that presentation, we'll be able to go through as many as we can to answer the questions with the panel. We will have a time during this evening where we're going to shift from here to the concourse. So if you have a comment, if you have something you want to follow up directly with the Director of Transportation or Utilities or City Manager or our sector captains in terms of police, if you want to talk to folks about something that's specific to something you care about, we're going to make sure that we have ample time for folks to make those connections and have those conversations in the concourse. All right? And then we're going to close out. So we got a lot of ground to cover, but that's what we're going to do tonight. Does that sound good? Yes. All right. So I want to make sure, that I introduce Mayor Stokes and allow him to come up and please welcome us and start us off this evening. Mayor Stokes.
Well, good evening. Welcome to the semi-annual Neighborhood Leadership Gathering. I have some prepared speeches. We want to make sure I cover all things, but I'll probably go off on some tangents, so I'll try not to do it too much. But it's really exciting to have this participation, and we've had it for a long time. I've been around, worked with a lot of other cities, and they have participation from time to time. I think we have a fairly unique program going here, and this is not the only way we do the participation, but having you here tonight really means a lot. It shows you care about Bellevue. Great communities really thrive because of their residents. And there are a lot of aspects to it. And we have residents in all sorts and types, and we have, amazing that we have new neighborhoods coming on in downtown, and other neighborhoods are being revitalized. We're working on going back and doing each look at the sub-area planning, and we're hoping to do that in a time frame that's not, 10 years, something like that. I mean, there's a balance between making decisions, getting things done, and talking to people and everything, between doing it too quickly and taking forever. And by the time you get through with one, down the line, then it's time to redo the other, so you're in a perpetual circle on that. So we're working hard on how we do that, and you're going to be key to that, I think, in telling us and working with us about how we can look at the city and the sub-areas and the commonalities and then the differences, and do that in a very effective way that doesn't mean we just go from, community to community to community and kind of do the same thing. So I think that's why having you here and having you participating in this, and a lot of you, I see a lot of faces that participate quite a bit in the city, can really help us focus and get something done in a time frame that is meaningful to you and actually lets you have changes come that you want in your community in a reasonable time period. So I think that's really, really great. Bellevue, by any count, and we're continually getting things in from different groups saying Bellevue is one of the best places to live in the country. We have outstanding schools, beautiful neighborhoods, active communities, active individuals, and a booming economy. I've been with the BDA trips to, 6 different cities now. We're just in Nashville. Music City, USA, that's a unique piece. They're booming, but they're not booming the same way we are. And I think it's good we find out things to do when we go on those trips and things not to do. So we have a booming economy. We're just about right here on getting the downtown livability piece done. We're working through a couple of issues, and it's going to have a positive effect on downtown, a positive effect on people living here in the communities. And because we work and have downtown the way it is, we have the strong communities instead of having a downtown that just spreads all over the place. So we have that capacity to keep the neighborhoods really thriving and vital, and having a downtown that we all enjoy going to and that people come here to work. Of course, having people come here to work is one of the challenges we have, and we're not unique. It's interesting going to meetings, and every city says, and every community says, oh my gosh, we got cut-through traffic. It's awful. Well, it's awful all over. Every city has problems with that. And that's one of those blessings and curses type of things in a sense, because the people coming here are coming here to work, or they're leaving from here going to work. We have about 95,000 people more during the day. We also put a net gain of about 45,000 because we have a lot of people going outside. So it's just part of the fact that we are the cultural business economic hub of the region. And that's why we have a lot of things that a lot of cities our size, in terms of numbers of people, don't have. But traffic congestion, construction, affordable housing, all of these are things that are challenges in our time, and we have to really work on those, and we have to work on those together. But the future continues to be bright, and I'm very confident we can tackle these issues together. We may not agree, we may have arguments about things, but we're always, I think, all of us looking for what's best to do for Bellevue and how do we do it in a way that works for everybody. So tonight's meeting is stuffed with a lot of information that I hope you'll find useful. And I'm so proud to be here with 7 of you, right? Okay, want to get it right. 7 individuals that I have the pleasure of working with very day-to-day on a very unique basis, and a team. And this person sitting here has had a whole lot to do with this team. being here. And I worked with a lot of other cities on a lot of different areas. And again, we have an outstanding staff and employees here. And it's the envy of other cities. In fact, we do a lot to help other cities in areas such as transportation innovation. We're doing that, and it's something that's going to benefit because the region, you know, with roads, you don't just stop at the border and then something else happens. So we're working through all those issues, and we are supported by and work with and work for a fantastic staff, and they'll be talking with you. They've really worked hard to put together an interesting program, and we're all looking forward to getting your feedback, your questions, and we're here to listen. You know, sometimes people say you're not listening. Well, sometimes we're listening. We may not agree. That's different, but we'll do that. But we've all got to keep listening, and hopefully at some point we'll get to agreement. Again, just you know, hope you share what you hear tonight with your friends and neighbors, your small group relative to the 140,000 people who live here. So you've got to get out and talk about it. Thanks for your work. Thanks for your involvement. Feel free to chat with me and the rest of the staff afterwards. And with that, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Brad Miyake. Brad, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor. With all those great comments about me and the staff, I guess we could expect raises at the end of the year, huh, guys? So, hey, just welcome everyone for being here, for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here, because it does show, as the Mayor mentioned, your commitment to the city and interest in what's going on in the city. You know, this event serves as an opportunity for you to hear from us to hear from you, with really the goal of building a better Bellevue and building a better community here. As many of you know, I was out in the community during the summer. I conducted a number of what we called summer chats with the city manager and some of our leadership team here. We went to a number of locations throughout the city and talked to folks and got your comments, answered questions with you. We also went to a number of events, events like the block parties, the National Night Out, and a number of other events what the community was holding. Great events. I was super excited to go there. It was a great opportunity for me to get to meet with some of you, hear some of your thoughts, and enjoy great food. Just a great opportunity. I really appreciate it. And this is kind of an extension of that, to hear more from you to hear a little bit more from us. The summer chats were something new this year, and it was really, again, to get community feedback from you, and for us to get out, the leadership to get out into the community and hear from you, and for answering questions and whatnot that you might have. So from these kind of informal conversation came a number of themes. These themes that I heard, at least from the summer chats and the different neighborhood events, were very consistent with the results that we heard from our 2017 community resident survey. So some of those themes, one was our residents really love their neighborhoods. People spoke of how they enjoyed their neighborhoods. It was a safe neighborhoods. They have great schools, as the mayor mentioned, clean streets, and even more so, great neighbors that cared for one another. And that was very consistent with our resident survey, where 94% of folks feel very positive about their neighborhoods and the overall quality of life. Another theme I heard loud and clear was how the neighborhood loved the service that they were receiving from the city. You know, you get, and a number of people are here on with me this evening that deliver absolutely great service to you day in and day out, whether it's transportation, utilities, and building permits, that type of thing. Fire service, police services. They were very, they expressed their appreciation to me, and again, it showed up in our survey results as 92% of people felt that the overall quality of the city's services exceeds or greatly exceeds their expectation. You know, other people also think that this is a great place to live. We have, next slide, we're nationally recognized. You know, we're #1 for quality of life by the Business Insider organization. We're #2 as the best place to live in the U.S. by Livability.com. and number 5th in the happiest city in the U.S. Yeah, how about that? And you know that these are more of our recent awards, but we receive these every year, all the time about how great of a city this is. We've been mentioned in Money Magazine and other major publications of how great of a place this is to live. And so it's no wonder that we're seeing people come in and want to live here. So I wanted to say that we've heard that, another theme I heard is that we're growing and we're growing fast. And with all that growth, you know, there's some positives and negatives. The positives, of course, are, you know, we have great restaurants to go to now, got more places to shop, great cultural diversity now. We're a city of over 50% people of color here. Great schools, and companies are wanting to move in here, which creates really high-paying jobs. Companies like REI, who is moving their headquarters into the Spring District because this is the place to be right now. They want to move their companies in, their company headquarters in, and educational foundations such as the University of Washington, you know, locating a campus over in the Spring District. Which is the GIX, which is the Global Innovation Exchange, which is a partnership between the University of Washington and Tsinghua University, which is like the MIT in China. And what they're doing is offering graduate degrees in technology with a focus on innovation and startups. I mean, that's how the vibe that we have going on in the city, and it's no wonder people want to be here. Other things that are happening now, we have the Main-Bower Bay Park. It is our next new iconic waterfront park we've broken ground on construction. I think we're going to see a major phase completed here within around 18 months. And then right before that, we had the completion of the downtown park, as you might all recall. It was after over 20 years that we completed the circle, just in time for the 4th of July event. I got to say, we were all sweating bullets here, right, whether that was going to get open. And I got a big hand to Mike, who handled all the permitting for that, who expedited things just so that we could be open for the 4th of July. So, you know, and speaking of downtown, one of the things we do see right now is our downtown is our fastest growing neighborhood. You know, 10% of the population now lives in downtown. I don't know if you knew that or not. It's like 14,000 people are living in the downtown, and it continues to grow. And that was planning on the part of our councils to really focus a lot of the growth in the downtown cores and urban areas to preserve, you know, our natural spaces in our neighborhoods. But we know, as the mayor mentioned, you know, what comes with growth are some challenges that we have. We have more residents on the road and congestion, and we're going to hear a little bit about that from our transportation director, Dave Berg. Affordable housing, right, is a pretty big issue here. Our affordable, that is an old figure. The median price on an East Side home is now $855,000, and it's been climbing with apartments ranging above $2,000 per month in parts of the city. You know, one of the things the councils do, they adopted an affordable housing strategy to make sure that we get more affordable housing within the city, and it's part of their priorities in order to do that. And we are in the middle of that right now. So, you know, having said that, there's a lot of great things happening in the city. This is the city where you want to be. I just want to say, again, tonight is an opportunity for you to hear from us, but also for us to hear from you, and an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with many of you in the concourse. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I almost forgot. I need to turn it over to Toni Call, our finance director. She's first in line to talk about the finances of the city with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. It is great to see everybody here tonight. As I thought about coming, I was thinking about what's a personal tidbit that I could bring to the story today. And it's because I moved to this city at the ripe old age of 18 months. I had all my formative years here. I raised 2 kids here and sent them off from the city of Bellevue. So when the community meets like this, it's really kind of exciting for me to see everybody here. So my job for you today is to maintain your public trust through sound financial management. We do that through a couple of big metrics. So first of all, we're a AAA bond-rated city. What that means is when we go out into the open market and ask for debt, we get great rates. It's sort of like having an 810 on your own personal credit score. So it's very good stuff, right? We also have the state auditor come in every year. They look under our hood. They spend some time and look at all of our numbers, make sure we're all doing the right thing. And we've had clean audit opinions here for years. So when we think about the city finances, they're in quite good shape. We are fiscally prudent, but we're also thoughtfully opportunistic. So when I think about the city, one of the things we did last year in partnership with transportation was issue a $99.6 million TIFIA loan. And a TIFIA loan stands for Transportation Innovation Financing Infrastructure Act or something like that. Anyways, what it's really going to do is it's going to build the infrastructure that the city needs out in the Bel-Red area. So finance is able to help out in that arena. I'm asked quite frequently, how big really is the city's budget? How many dollars do you really have here? Well, over a 2-year period, we spend $1.5 billion. Now, a portion of that money is put in reserves for all those things that happen, even in your own households. You got to put money aside, right? So some of that's in reserves for rainy days. But the types of services you all receive, fire services, police services, we not only build parks, we maintain the parks. We make sure that they're safe parks. We also have lots of human services as well as all of our recreation programs. Transportation. We change all the light bulbs out in the street when they go out. We do bike paths, build roadways, build sidewalks, make sure all the signals are working, do traffic management. Economic development to ensure we have a continued safe business environment for ourselves. Community planning, you'll hear about that tonight, about how the city is planning for the future, and also this is where Mike's budget is in, where the neighborhood planning folks come in and do these works for us. A piece of our budget that nobody ever sees, but is really important, is the part that makes all the frontline services work, right? So the people that pay your bills, the people that make the paychecks for people who work here, all the technology when they hook the wires together, all that's got to be working. City Attorney's Office, who makes sure we stay legal and also prosecutes all of our misdemeanors here in the city. And all the police vehicles, the fire engines, all those vehicles have to be maintained. All of that happens within our budget here. You'll hear from Navo Tal tonight, who will talk a lot about utilities, all of those services, your water, your storm, your wastewater, and finally development. So all of our code compliance and our permitting is also done. What this means is next year, we'll start that big budget process again. So the 1920 budget will gear up next year. We'll have websites, and if you'd like to get involved, we'd be more than likely to have you happy to do that. So we'll see you next year when it comes to those things. With that, I'm going to introduce you over to Matt Cummins from PCD.
Thank you. Jump here. There we go. So I just heard that you've been here since 18 months. I haven't been here anywhere close to that long. I've been here about 90 days, and I am super, super ecstatic to be here. I was thinking about how to introduce the topic tonight for planning and community development, which is the department I manage. And I'm fond of showing this slide because that topic, I think, represents how great communities come together. And it's not about isolation, but about coming together of a confluence of different things. And great communities are built in a number of different ways. There are people that are involved in that, there's business and industry that's involved in that, and then there's the creation of great places. And the failure to recognize that creating great places for the people that live and work in your community is leading to the failure down the road. And the failure to understand how creating place leads to the perpetuation of good economic climate is leading to failure down the road. And the interconnection of these three things is really the sweet spot of building great communities. So when we look at setting forth a strategic plan for how to help the community grow in a meaningful way and start open dialogues about how to address things that are coming up, there's a myriad of different services that we provide. And the way we look at that, we have all of these different services provided under one umbrella. And so building great communities and doing economic development programs like our startup incubation business programs and planning and rezoning our downtown that's now going through city council hearing processes and thinking about city in a park and what that means and how it can be properly implemented and what the arts mean and how we'll plant a flag as being the capital of arts and culture in the region and what it means to engage neighborhood services and how to provide for affordable housing. Those things are all interconnected in our work programs here at the city through the Planning Community Development Department. And a couple of those specific things that I know are of interest to everyone, I'm going to be happy to answer any specific questions afterwards. The neighborhood area planning, I know, has been of significant interest out there. The comprehensive plan specifically contemplates those plans being updated. We are moving towards a work program that will hopefully get going on that here early next year. We're going through putting together the work programming and staffing analyses now. Affordable housing is, of course, a significant issue. The council has just recently adopted a strategy for all of that, and we have an implementation plan that we are getting going on now and going into next year. Station area planning, that is, of course, significant. The Spring District, as Brad touched on, we're already having significant employment moving into the area. Residential is being built. All the stations are moving to come online, and 2023 sounds like it's a long way out, but it's actually really not. It's actually light years fast in terms of station planning nationally to get 6 years worth of infrastructure in place and be ready for all the growth and development that comes with that. A couple of very large planning studies that are ongoing. I'll show a slide next. Wilburton and downtown and the connection of those two things by the Grand Connection. And then we're looking now some economic things, looking back at the Bell Red. Has the new zoning that was put in place a few years ago, is that working? Is it not working? There'll be some dialogue with the council on that. And then the creative economy, I thought I would mention. We are moving into an era, as I mentioned, we think it's very important to try to connect those three circles on that first slide and thinking about the creative class and what they are going to want for housing, for public spaces, for amenity structures, things the city can create to help attract those types of workers in the labor force, and then create policies around those, zoning policies, development policies, and growth policies that make sense so that things can grow smartly. I thought I might just throw this up because I think it's a good slide of how a lot of these things come together. Though it's a little bit cockeyed. That's the Wilburton area, and you'll see the 405 freeway sort of on the left side of it. The red arrow represents the Grand Connection connecting Lake Washington all the way through the downtown park up and over down into Wilburton. The East Side Rail Corridor is the green line there. It's going to be an absolutely beautiful pedestrian bike trail, which is an amenity structure that we continue to hear both from our residents and business community is critical in the coming years. And so we're working on the planning and construction of that. And then the orange line is the light rail as it comes through. So if you imagine the confluence of the economics of downtown Bellevue, where land is selling for roughly $25 million an acre, and you have tens of thousands of resident or light rail users coming through, potentially up to hundreds of thousands, and then you have people wanting to get in and out without having to drive their car, because that's really important. You see how the land uses and the economics and the physical places, and then at some level, the culture and the soul of a community start to come together. And so really planning for smart growth is layering all these different efforts on top of each other and making sure that you're trying to keep your eye on the ball so that no one gets out of skew with the others. So I'll finish up with, I think the work that our neighborhood services group here is just absolutely phenomenal, and Mike McCormick Hunnelman and his team are to be congratulated for the programs that they run to try to get out and interact with all of you, underserved populations, mini city hall, and a whole host of other programs, neighborhood enhancement program, et cetera. They do an outstanding job. I hope you take full advantage of communicating with government. And if there's anything you ever want to know or talk about relating to growth, planning, economics, arts and culture, environmental stewardship, tree canopies, and the like, we are happy to talk with you all about all those subjects. So I'm going to hand it off to Mike Brennan here, and he'll walk you through his part.
Thank you, Mac, and it's great to be here this evening. Good evening, everybody. So when I asked my staff for a little help pulling together some information to share a little bit about what our department is working on in development services, they went off and created a little video. And I thought, wow, what a great group of staff, so creative. And then I thought for a minute, maybe they just don't want me to talk. They just want me, because they don't trust someone to do a great job. But anyway, they did a little video, so I'm going to play that for you real quick and then just add a few comments on some of the things that you'll see go by on the screen here to add a little more information. So they did a great job, and that went fast. But a couple of things I just want to highlight that are really have the attention of the Development Services Department as we continue to evolve and improve the quality of the services that we're providing to the community. One of the areas we've spent a significant amount of time and investment over the last several years is really trying to create more convenient access to our services through our online permitting portal and continuing to develop that. So now you can obtain from the city all of the permits that you might need if you want to improve your home or have an inspection conducted through our online permit portal, mybuildingpermit.com. It also provides a lot of information for kind of do-it-yourself if you want to find out what the code requires, some tip sheets there, and also a number of pieces of information that really are kind of self-help. Which has really been the focus of our staff and really to try to improve the convenience of the services that you might need from us. So you can get your permits from the city 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year through our online portal from the point of application to the point where you pay for it and the permit is issued. And we've also spent a lot of time trying to put some additional information out that really helps you find out what's going on around your neighborhood. We've posted on our website, on the Development Services section of the city's website that was recently updated. We'll hear more about in a minute. Some mapping through a partnership with House, which is a popular private home improvement website that really populates with our permit information in a relatively basic way, but it's a pretty useful tool if you want to find out what your neighbors are doing. If they've got construction activity, you can click on the bubble and it'll tell you what permit we've issued, and then you can investigate further through the city's staff. We are moving forward with I think a more robust tool that's a mapping tool. You can go and zoom in on your neighborhood and with a map that will give you very specific information of the permit and construction activity that might be going on in your neighborhood that you might be interested in hearing or understanding more about. Should your neighbors have something underway that you're curious about. We're also creating videos that hopefully will be, again, very useful on the self-help side to help people understand how to access the services through our website. Sometimes it can be confusing, but sometimes a simple video is really helpful. I know I go onto YouTube from time to time when I need a little help and find that to be a very useful thing. So there is a lot going on to try to create improved convenience. The other area, as you mentioned, as the mayor mentioned and the city manager Miyake, this is a booming time in the city. And as a result of that, there's a lot of development activity. And it has been disruptive at times out there as you try to make your way from your home to work or to shop or to visit friends. And so we work really hard to try to coordinate that activity in a way that minimizes that disruption, coordinating with the contractors out there to ensure that they're not creating conflicts that can be avoided in delivery of materials when roads or lanes are closed, sidewalks are closed, and ensuring that the areas around those construction sites are safe. So that is another area that's gotten significant attention and continues to get significant attention. And we're working hard to push information out to the community so you know what's going on when you're making your plans to get from point A to point B. If there's going to be a disruption, you're not surprised by it. You've got tools that can give you kind of early warning. And the bottom line really in the development service for development services is really about creating a high quality community that is safe. We want the buildings to be safe. We want the water to be safe to drink. We want the buildings to be comfortable to be in, and we want the quality of your environment as you walk around the city, downtown or elsewhere, to be a quality experience. And so there's a lot of focus in the way we enforce and administer the codes in the city to ensure those outcomes that are really the vision that's been articulated by our city council. So with that, I will hand the microphone over to the Transportation Director, Dave Berg.
Great, thanks, Mike. So yeah, I'm Dave Berg, Transportation Director. Thank you all for coming tonight and welcome. There's an old saying in the traffic engineering business is you're only as good as your last rush hour. So I'm hoping you all had a good commute today. For those of you who had to commute, don't hold it against me, but you know, that's, yeah. So I'm going to speak today a little bit about transportation and some of the ways that we are providing a safe and efficient transportation system that also provides everyone choices in how they travel. So this picture here, as it shows, you know, Bellevue has changed a lot since the 1950s. Steady growth both within the city, but also the region around us continues to drive demand on our transportation system. And you've heard about where that growth is happening. It's happening where we here at the city have planned for it to happen. Downtown, Wilburton, the Bel-Red area, and to a lesser degree out along the Eastgate corridor. Those are the areas where today we have a fairly balanced transportation system, provide opportunities for all modes of travel, but even more so, we're focusing our efforts into expanding those travel options and expanding the system in those areas. So in the future, people will even have more options in how they want to get around. So let's talk a little bit about this balanced transportation system. I mean, we all know that Bellevue grew up predominantly around the personal vehicle. And even today, that is the predominant mode of travel. But we want to make sure both today as well in the future that folks have multiple choices in how they want to get around. So a frequent, reliable transit network, safe pedestrian, safe bicycle facilities, and 6 years from now, a light rail system. So linking these all together, bringing all these different modes together and providing a safe and efficient transportation system that supports vital economy and livable neighborhoods is really the goal that we're after. And that's really quite the balancing act these days. One of our focuses, though, is on providing a safe and efficient transportation system. We know we can't build our way out of congestion, but we also know there's some key choke points in this city, and we're working very hard to address those choke points to provide more efficiency to the system. At the same time, we hear a lot of concerns about neighborhood safety. Mike mentioned the neighborhood leadership gathering. It was about 1.5 years ago where we heard a lot from the neighborhood leaders, folks like you, about needing a safer transportation system in neighborhoods, safe paths for you and your children to walk from home to either schools or to parks, improving congestion relief for access in and out of your neighborhoods, especially during that PM peak hour time. So a multitude of issues, and out of that came this proposal by the city last year for this neighborhood safety connectivity and congestion relief levy. Now, it wasn't unanimous, but the majority of folks here in the city did vote for that levy, and thank you all for that did vote for that, because that is providing a tremendous funding source, about $7 million a year, to address a very long backlog of lists that address safety within neighborhoods, getting to neighborhoods, congestion relief, adding sidewalks, adding bicycle facilities. So a long laundry list of projects that we are focusing on, both today as well in the future. Brad also mentioned these city manager chats during the summer. We heard a lot about commuter traffic using residential streets, again, in that PM peak hour time, this neighborhood cut-through traffic issue. That's a tough one. These, we all have smartphones today, and we all have these mapping things that tell us how to get from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time. And quite often, the shortest amount of time is through our neighborhoods, is through residential areas. So we're also finding the tools we used to use, speed humps, the little traffic circles, the things that would deter people and make it a little more inconvenient to drive through neighborhoods. They're not working as well anymore because the congestion on the main arterials is so much that, yeah, a little inconvenience in the neighborhoods is not that big a deal. So we're really looking at new ways and really relying on you all, the folks actually in the neighborhoods, to help us solve the problems for your specific neighborhood. There is no cookie cutter approach for how to deter that kind of traffic. So we rely on the neighborhoods to get together and actually come up with solutions for their specific neighborhood, because there is going to be this balance between safety and convenience, both for safety, to ensure safety for folks that live in the neighborhood, but also convenience for those of you that have to come in and out of your neighborhoods during those PM peak hour times. So a tremendous challenge, but it is something that with the neighborhood safety connectivity and congestion relief levy, we're able to accelerate a lot of these projects. So with that, I could talk for hours on transportation, and I'll certainly join you outside, but I'm going to turn this over to Navo Tallnow, our Utilities Director.
Thank you, Dave. So my name is Navo Tall. I'm the Utilities Director, and I am really, really happy to be here to have a conversation with you, because I will tell you that I liken utilities to a happily married, long-suffering spouse. We take them for granted, and we complain about them because we know we can rely on them. They're always going to be there, right? How many of you think about utilities at any other time other than when you have to pay the bill? And yet, imagine a day without water. And then you think about these are life critical services that the utilities provides, and so these are the services that Bellevue Utilities provides. I think you know that solid waste is provided by a contract with the public, but water, sewer, and storm are provided by the Bellevue Utilities Department, and we are able to provide these services to you for just about $5 a day, delivered to you into your home. So when you turn on the tap, one of the key concerns you have is that you have high quality, safe drinking water. And I can tell you that Bellevue's water is one of the best tasting, safest waters in the country. And it comes from a pristine source and from the Cascade Mountains, from Tolt and Cedar watersheds. And there is continuous monitoring and monitoring and testing to make sure that it meets the highest standards, both state and federal standards. And we, I had one employee said, we could do a creative fundraising. We don't need to raise rates, because for what you would pay for one bottle of 12-ounce bottle of water from a grocery store, we can provide you 90 gallons. So imagine if we bottled Bellevue water. We could make a lot of money. I think most of you know that utilities is a pretty capital-intensive business. We have thousands of miles of water, sewer, and storm lines under the roads. We have very, very large water tanks. We have pump stations, and all of those are aging. That's nothing new. That's not just a subject of local conversation. That's a national problem. And Bellevue is investing heavily into its infrastructure. In fact, in the 2017 to 2023 capital program, we are going to be spending $220 million on replacing and refurbishing our infrastructure. There are a couple of projects that I want to highlight for you. One, and both of these happen to be water projects just by chance. And I wanted to highlight them for you for two different reasons. So this is replacing the reservoir at Pikes Peak and an associated pump station. Now, this is a pretty complicated project because it is actually not on utility property. It's in a state park. It is up a very, very steep hill, and it's right adjacent to Bridle Trails community. And there are a lot of different stakeholders that are very, very interested in what happens here. So we wanted to make sure that we engage our community, our stakeholders. And in this particular case, we had, I think they were like, let me just move on to the next page. So we had the Bridle Trails Community Club, we had Lake Washington, Saddle Club, Bridle Trails Parks Foundation, and Pikes Peak residents. So what we did is we created a community advisory team that worked side by side with our engineers on evaluating the various projects. And I will tell you that we just 2 weeks ago presented this project to the Bridle Trails community, and they were very, very happy with the outcome. It was a success, example of a success in working collaboratively with the community in coming up with the best options for providing our infrastructure renewal. So the second project that I'm very excited about is smart water meters. So our meters are getting old and they need to be replaced. But rather than just replacing them with like for like with similar kind of meters, we are putting in smart meters. And what you might be wondering, what's a smart meter? Smart meters transmit data continuously, almost every 5-10 minutes, so that and the data is captured by for billing purposes by the department, utilities department, but also you can monitor your consumption and on a continuous basis. So you wonder, why do you care? Well, right now, we can only read your meter once every 2 months. So we have no way to tell you how much water you're using, but most especially if you have a water leak, especially in your irrigation system, we can't give you any information. So this project is going to be really, really helpful to not only to us, but to you in monitoring and controlling your consumption. And we will be putting these meters in starting in mid to late 2018, and the project will be complete, hopefully, by end of 2019. So those are the projects that I wanted to highlight. I'll be out there. I would love to talk to you about it. Like I said, I feel very ignored. So come chat with me. With that, did you see that I'm one of the last to be? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lenka, our communications director.
Well, thank you, Nav. I will take the little clicker from you. And, well, I may be last on this panel, but communications certainly isn't least important. Agree? Yeah? All right. Well, what we do in communications essentially is connect local government with the people we serve, namely all of you in the audience here and at home. And so how do we do this? Well, we do it through varied communication channels, in person, online, through video and print, at City Hall, and out in the community. And so we know you're busy, and we're continuing to explore different ways to bring you information that you care about, as well as the type of information you care about, when you want it, and when resources permit in your preferred language. So more than 80,000 people visit our website monthly, and they're doing so mostly on mobile devices and as well as on tablets. And so because of that, when we redesigned our website, which went live on June 1st, we made sure that it was a responsive design, meaning that no matter what type of device you're on, you can access information on our website. And we also enhanced our search functionality because we know that's how people are finding information on the internet. So we wanted our website to reflect that as well. And also, we're bringing you council meetings online, live from the meetings itself, and on cable, wherever you are through Bellevue Television. So that's very important for us to be able to bring government to you where you are and make it easier for you to access and know what's happening with the city of Bellevue. And then all of you should have gotten a copy of our first ever annual report. And this is a great resource for you because it provides you with information about city accomplishments, services, programs, activities that have taken place over the last year. And it's also available online as well. So taking a look at how we're bringing information to you where you are, and we're also looking at providing more opportunities for you to engage with the city. And that's why you'll find us on social media. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and we're also using Facebook Live. This is something new for us, and this is a way that we're using social media to bring events to you live, perhaps news conferences or ribbon cuttings, and that way you can stay informed about what's happening with the city. And as many of you know, we're also on Nextdoor, the private neighborhood social network. And this is a great way that we can provide you with information about events, severe weather, as well as hyper-local neighborhood news, because we can provide information based on the neighborhood you live in. So that's something that we know that we're guests in your neighborhood, so to speak, and so we try to be very cognizant of the type of information we're sharing with you on Nextdoor. And of course, Mike had mentioned about being on House. So we're looking at different ways that we can go to where you are, not necessarily expecting you to come to the city website or to us directly to get information. So we're trying to make it easier for you to stay informed. And of course, we are also making it easier for you to stay informed about issues that are important to you. We're doing so also through video. And as you see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, that's a police video at your service that's available in English and Spanish. So whenever possible and when resources permit, we try to provide timely, critical information in other languages. And we also provide news alerts. And this is a great way that you can subscribe to topics that interest you, one being emergency alerts in case of severe weather or significant emergency that you can get notified directly. And there's also the My Bellevue app, and hopefully you've downloaded that on your phone. You can also access it on the website, and that's an easy way for you to report issues, make service requests, and also stay up to date on city news and events. And later this month, you'll also be receiving the It's Your City newsletter in your mailboxes. And that's another way that we're trying to make it more convenient for you to stay up to date, informed about issues that affect you at home. So in summary, we continue to use standard proven ways to communicate with communities while also looking to leverage technology and other resources to provide you timely, relevant news. Now, this journey certainly isn't over. We're continuing to seek ways to enhance relations and improve connections with everyone who call Bellevue home. So thank you so much to all of you for being here tonight.
All right, we're going to get to the fun part, but thank you very much to the panel for all of the information that you gave. Maybe that was the fun part. We started with that, but we're going to continue. I want you now also to continue to write any question that came up that you either brought with you or that you had that was sparked from the panel that you want to ask about. And our staff will collect them and bring them up to me. As they're doing that, I was informed by our parking enforcement person that we have a gray Acura parked illegally in visitor parking. Gray Acura parked illegally in visitor parking. I do not have a license number. So I don't know if that's us or someone else in the building. All right, I'm just going to jump on in as those are being collected, and we'll get through as many of these as we can. This one goes to Dave Burke. This is from Karen Reagan, and she is asking, can we please have no U-turn signs on Northeast 8th and Bellevue Way? Every day, there's a huge holdup as cars insist on trying to make it around the corner, and it's it's backing up several times. So it's plus backing up several times. So the question is, can we please have no U-turn signs on Northeast 8th and Bellevue Way?
Okay, that's a great question. I don't know where Karen is. Oh, there she is back there. There are many places in the city we allow U-turns, but there's also many places where we don't allow U-turns. I don't know what is posted out there. Are you talking, which direction are you talking? Because some of those are double lefts and some are single lefts. So is there a specific direction? Okay, thanks. We can. Yeah, and it's not a money issue. So I'll take that back to our engineering folks and have them look at that.
All right, next question is going to go to Matt. This is in regard to affordable housing. How do we keep Bellevue a diverse economically and culturally community affordable for all who want to live here? How are we going to, what's the plan?
So that's a good question. I've got the magic 8-ball. No, that's a question that is tormenting highly successful economic areas around the country right now. And the explosion in growth over the last 5 to 10 years in a couple of urban markets, and ours is one of them, of course, has led to this massive affordability challenge. And you're seeing these year-over-year increases in home values and therefore corresponding rental rates. So there's a couple things the city can do, and there's a couple things the city can't do. So we can't completely control market demand. When an area is so desirable that people are flocking in at unprecedented rates and they're willing to pay whatever the housing costs are, the government can't necessarily control all of that demand side of the equation. But there are some things that we are specifically doing relating to incenting development to provide, new development, to provide affordable. Uh-oh, I've been cut off. Oh, everybody hear me? Okay. And so we are changing our zoning policies to allow for a little more development in the urban areas if it comes with affordability indices. And so we are targeting a couple of areas right now. The downtown specifically, that's moving its way through. The Bell Red Corridor has done that for some time, and then most recently the Eastgate Corridor, where multifamily is now allowed in places that it was not. So there are a number of other strategies that are in the implementation program that will be moving forward over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. Of course, affordability, is all in the eye of the beholder. And so we are looking at different levels of affordability and seeing how we can help.
Okay. This question goes to Mike Brennan, Development Services. You spoke on improving permitting processes. Was that just for residential permitting? What about for small businesses? Currently, permitting and inspections process for small business is equal to a death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Thank you for your question. I think. So absolutely, all segments of permitting are really important. And for different reasons, and the customer groups and their needs are different, and we try to be responsive to that. So the work that we've done to try to provide improved convenience and access to services online, particularly, certainly is available to high-rise developers, homeowners, and small businesses. One area, though, we admittedly need to do a little bit more work, and that is small businesses who are really one-time in the process. It's not their thing to go through a development process. It's their thing to run a business, to run their small business. So we've had some internal conversations and done some work to figure out how do we create a kind of this single point of contact to assist people who are not familiar with the process, who are really one-time users, and particularly small businesses, to help them navigate through the process so that they understand not only what's required by the city, but there are a lot of other regulatory requirements that come with getting business licenses from the state, from the city, and even from the health department if you're opening a restaurant or food service establishment. So a very good question. It's an area of attention. We've got to do some more work there. And I do hear from time to time about the challenges that the our small business owners have coming through the process. So it does have our attention. So appreciate your question.
This one can be answered by anyone, so just raise your hand if you want to answer it. What role should the concept of equity play in the future of the city? Who wants to tackle that one? Do you want?
Well, I have the microphone. I guess I'm stuck. It's kind of deer in the headlights up here. Okay, so that's a pretty broad question. But I think providing access to the services that we provide by the city to all of the different segments of the city population is really important. And as I mentioned, in the permit process specifically, we have different customer groups that have different needs, whether it's a small business or a homeowner or a major developer, and we try to calibrate to be responsive to all. We are also dealing with a very diverse community and continuing to grow in diversity, and so we're continuing to try to find ways to make sure that we're able to connect with the different populations within the city so that they understand what services are available and how to access those services. And so that's a continued area, I think, of attention for the city. And it is really a part of what really makes this city rich is really the whole range of people who now call this city home and the many life experiences that they bring to the community. But with that does come some challenges. And so that, I think, was a good question, and it's certainly an area that the city is paying attention to.
So this is for Nav. It says, no question, just a rave to your department. A couple of guys who work in utilities were very friendly and professional when the sidewalk and circle had to be replaced in his cul-de-sac. Thank you for hiring great workers.
Oh, great. Thank you.
But there is a question for Lanka. There are currently 99 different languages spoken by citizens of Bellevue. How is your department going to expand the translation of services to other than Spanish or Chinese?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and that's something that we think about a lot. Language access is something that is important to us, and we continue to explore ways to make that possible. So that is a very good question, and I'll certainly take that back with me and continue to explore how can we make sure that our very diverse community stays connected and involved. So thank you for that question.
We're going to go back to Mac. Since 10% of our city's population lives downtown, how is the city working to preserve and add to open green space?
So that is an excellent question. I've actually been spending quite a bit of time with the Parks and Rec director talking about that exact concept. So thinking about what amenity spaces people will want relating to city planning and creating physical spaces for people as the city transitions from a suburban area, what it thinks of itself as a suburban area, into an urban area. I would argue we're already an urban area. The concept of how much open space you need is very much a function of becoming that urban area. And so what was set aside years ago as a downtown park, when the downtown was principally a hub of commerce, if you will, and the mall, is very different than as a thriving neighborhood with tens of thousands of full-time residents. So a couple things are being done in the interim. One is, as part of the downtown rezoning ordinance, there is now a requirement for ground level open space that didn't exist before. And so you will see a lot more plazas and pocket spaces in and around the urban environment, not just big buildings. And then as the Grand Connection comes through, you will see a far different approach to streetscapes and pedestrian mobility activity and so forth that will create a different feeling as you're walking around some of what looks like pretty hardscape right now.
Okay, back to Dave Berg. In the beginning, there was traffic. Then there was traffic. Now there is traffic, and soon there will be traffic. The booming economy comes with booming traffic, not only right here in Bellevue, but all around us. Light rail is not the only answer to this problem. So what is being done on local and regional levels to address traffic congestion?
So great question, and that's the conundrum of apparently the eons, the centuries. So, you know, there is a lot being done, but there is no silver bullet. There is no way we are going to wave our hand and create a congestion-free world out there. So with the growth comes, it's the yin and the yang of it. There are many things, though, we are doing, and again, light rail is not the only thing, but it is a balancing act. It is being able to provide many different choices because we all may choose one where we live, and where we live could dictate how we're going to travel to and from work or to and from where we want to recreate. We work very closely with our regional partners, both at the state level, at the county level, and with Sound Transit, so King County Metro Sound Transit and the state DOT, because we recognize, especially at the state level, what happens on the freeways has a tremendous impact on our city arterials. So getting investments, especially on 405, which is, you know, every day is basically a parking lot, and as that spills over in our city streets, we need to try to keep that freeway system moving. So advocating at the state level for funding to improve 405, improvements on Interstate 90. Fortunately, 520 is pretty well funded right now. It's just got to get completion going. So at the state level, we work very hard to invest in the state system. Same thing at the regional level, both Sound Transit and King County Metro. We did a transit plan about 4 years ago to help provide a frequent, reliable transit network in Bellevue. King County Metro, when they updated their long-range plan, essentially adopted that for the plan for the east side. So the King County Metro plan for the east side is really all focused around a frequent, reliable transit network in Bellevue, which was a huge win for us. Now, it's the implementation of that we continue to be the fly in the ointment and pestering King County Metro to provide the service that we all want over here, so we all have that option to travel. So it's a multi-pronged approach. There's no silver bullet, but believe me, a lot of staff in the department spend a lot of time working on this.
So I'm going to do a reality check on the questions. We have lots of questions, and so we're going to switch to rapid fire mode. So for the panel, let's nail our answers in a way that is right on, and we're going to try and fly through as many of these as we can. All right? Boom!
I think you ought to be up here, Mike.
All right, part B on transportation. How do you work with neighborhood cities like Redmond and Issaquah to accommodate the growth in traffic that's clogging our streets as those cities expand? For example, Redmond's plan for Overlake will have major impacts on Bel Red and Northeast Bellevue, but there do not appear to be any infrastructure investments in the area on the Bellevue side.
Mac and I just met with Redmond a couple weeks ago to have this very conversation, and it is going to be a focus of our congestion relief efforts as part of the levy that was passed a year ago. Is that fast enough, Mike?
Here's a question. The park department does supply one free community center room a year for each neighborhood association. Could this be expanded to include one free use of park picnic areas for neighborhood picnics each year? The current rental fee for covered park picnic areas is $150 to $180 per day.
You know, I did talk to someone about that very question just before the meeting, and I committed to look into it and get back to all of you in terms of the possibilities of doing that.
Perfect. Question for development services. Can anything be done code-wise about homes that are sitting empty or vacant?
Yes. So we do have some codes that are in place that require a certain level of maintenance, property maintenance for those homes. So if you have a home like that in your neighborhood that is not being maintained, the landscaping has grown long, et cetera, just submit a notification to our code compliance. You can do that online. We'll go out, investigate, and if we have authority to require them to make some improvements, we will do that.
This is from Mike, I guess, and Mac. Is there a citizen panel for design review for Bellevue? There seem to be many negative comments on the building designs on Bellevue Way.
So there is not a design review board or panel. That responsibility does come to staff. But if you want to engage early in the process about the design of buildings, that is something that we like to see. So look for the sign when it goes up, or if you get a permit bulletin, if you live nearby, you'll receive those in the mail, or check online for projects that are proposed in your area and comment. And you can absolutely comment on the design of the building, and where we have the ability to influence that, we will.
Okay. The couple questions on housing. Are there any programs being created or coexisting for public servants, teachers, police, firefighters who work in Bellevue, but to help them affordably live in Bellevue?
So not through the city. Our affordable housing strategies are currently based on total production of units. I don't know about the county. I'm relatively new here, so I'm happy to look into that if someone wants to grab me afterwards.
This is for Mike. What earthquake codes are being enforced for buildings? Are there retrofit programs available for personal residences?
So we do enforce the International Building Code, which is the most contemporary construction code. Generally, it's applied nationwide. It does have, for our region, high standards for seismic design for buildings. So we do have engineers and inspection staff that are very focused on ensuring that those buildings meet those requirements. We don't currently have a retrofit program, but we do have information that can provide you some background on how that works. And I don't know that we still have a contractor registration list, but there was a contractor registration list that maybe the county can provide us. If you want to talk to me afterwards out in front, maybe we can find some additional information for you.
Great. Mac, when will neighborhood plans be started? What has been the holdup?
Okay, rapid fire. The neighborhood planning process we hope to kick off ASAP. It's been a primary focus for us as we finish up the downtown effort and trying to get that going. We've got a lot in the hopper right now. We are hoping to absolutely have that underway early next calendar year, and it's something that we're super excited about it. The holdup I can't speak to that terribly intelligently. I can tell you there has been a phenomenal amount of work that's been worked on as well as a whole lot of discussion about the program. But the most important thing is to stay engaged, and we will let you all know when it is going to get kicked off here in the next probably 3 to 4 months-ish.
The question in terms of determining what's the order of the neighborhood area plans and which ones should go first in the process.
So we are just working on some ideas on that. We've not had a dialogue with the city council yet about the process or which neighborhood plans may go first. I expect that to happen sometime in the next 30 to 75 days. We are working on council agenda scheduling right now, but it is absolutely at the top of our list to start talking about in a public way.
So a question for Nav. There's an active thread on Nextdoor with neighbors in Issaquah who just transferred from Bellevue and got smart water meters. These neighbors are reporting increased bills from $200 a month to $1,200 a month. There doesn't seem to be any accountability for the problem, for where the problem is. How will we ensure smart meters are working correctly as part of this transition? And what can we learn from other communities who are slightly ahead of us?
So there are a couple of things that I can speculate on what might be happening in Issaquah. And it isn't that the meters are malfunctioning. One is that until you put in smart meters, you don't realize that there are low-grade leaks in your system that have been going on for a long, long time. And the first time you realize that is once you have more accurate, timely reads. So, but most of the systems that are being put in, there are alerts. So if you have a continuous leak, you'll get a notice. You'll get a text or an email saying, you should check your system. So I don't know what the reason is, but it isn't because they're smart. It's not because the meters are smart. It is that either there's a leak or there's a more accurate read, because the old meter, when meters get old, they slow down and they start under-registering. So, and it could be a combination of all of these factors. But we will definitely be looking, as we do our implementation, we'll be looking at lessons learned from other communities that have done their implementations before us.
So staying with you, Nav, why is wastewater so expensive? Are new homes being built to use gray water?
So wastewater is for your sewer services, and we don't have our own treatment plant. We contract with King County, and a big portion of the wastewater bill is actually a pass-through to King County for treatment. And as far as gray water is concerned, so gray water would be for, as a replacement for your irrigation or outdoor use. And we don't, in Bellevue, you literally would have to create a parallel piping system, which can be very, very expensive. I know that King County is exploring reclaimed water for very localized area, where they don't have to put in long miles of pipe, because we call them purple pipe, which is a parallel system, and it is very, very expensive to put in. And I will tell you that for Bellevue, thankfully, we have ample supply of water for the foreseeable future without even developing alternate source such as lake taps.
This one's to Lenka. How is the city connecting with our elderly residents who are not online and not as connected?
That was something that I spoke to during the presentation, and I think that's a very good question, because we're cognizant that not everybody is online. So part of the way is that we still use print, as demonstrated with the It's Your City newsletter. And then also we look to some of you in the community who are neighbors with our senior citizens and others who may not have access to perhaps computers or other resources, that you can help keep them informed and keep them connected to the community.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mac. There are a couple of related questions here I'm going to try and pull together. What is the city doing to keep the park in Bellevue City in a park? And how can city council be held accountable to ensure Bellevue does not become a polluted concrete jungle? How do you, and this is related, how do you plan to reach the new target of 40% tree canopy as developers keep cutting down trees and we are only at 34 to 35% now? Okay.
Okay, rapid fire.
Rapid fire!
Okay, couple of things. So yes, hit on the requirement. There are policies in the city's comprehensive plan that contemplate 40% of the 40% of the city being covered by tree canopy. And so the question then, I think, is getting at, well, how are we going to ensure that that happens? So a couple things happen. Each time we look at planning studies and initiatives, we evaluate the impact to the tree canopy. In fact, we have full-time staff who do this here at the city in our department. And then we coordinate with development services on development requirements and tree loss and tree mitigation and replanting so that we can get accurate counts moving forward. And then we report back to the city council periodically on where we're at on that, in addition to all the rest of the environmental stewardship initiatives that are ongoing in the city.
Okay, follow-up question for you, Mac. Question regarding McMansions and their impacts on neighborhoods and community and connections. Can you share your thoughts on this trend and its positive and negative impacts for our neighborhoods?
Sure. I have had the opportunity to have had that experience seemingly in every city that I've been in because I've worked in highly desirable communities. And so there's a phenomenon that starts to occur when the real estate becomes valuable enough that someone will buy a small house, tear it down, and build the McMansion that looks wildly out of place and not in character with the surrounding neighborhood. And in Southern California, that was a phenomenon that ravaged much of coastal California and Orange County. When I was there 15, 18 years ago or so, I was in Scottsdale, Arizona. Same thing happened in and around the downtown. I was out in Colorado, which went through its building boom here in the last 6, 7 years. Those are the kinds of issues that I think are really important to talk about when we get into the neighborhood planning process. Everywhere I've ever been, different neighborhoods feel very, very differently about that phenomenon and whether or not it's really okay or not okay. So my personal opinion is that neighborhoods and the community themselves help define the culture and the soul of their own neighborhoods, and it's important to get out there and talk about what that issue means to you. Not what my own personal opinion or the staff opinion is on how big a house should be. And then through that dialogue, we'll start talking about, requirements and what makes sense and what doesn't.
Okay, this is for the city manager. The city of Bellevue has a fantastic vision document. How real is this document? That is, what's the intent to realize this vision?
Well, I would say that I believe the vision document you're talking about is the council vision, I'm presuming.
Yes.
That was developed by the council, what I believe, back in 2014. And I do think it's very real because every time we meet and talk with the council, they're constantly looking at that and putting forth goals and priorities in order to meet that vision. And along with that comes a very structured work program in order to meet those goals. So it's something that the council pays attention to. It is something they revisit every year to see how we're doing. So I would say it's very real.
Okay, thank you. This is a question, I'm grouping all of these questions. These are good questions, I tell you. Transportation questions, back to Dave. Why do projects take so long? The projected 3 months to add lights and upgrade curbs on Main and 148th. Anyway, traffic is obviously impacted by congested roadways and the length of time of the projects. Why do they take so long?
So, Main and 148th, that was the project. There's always one a year. There's always one a year. We don't build projects. We contract with private contractors to build our projects. We give them so much time, and clearly that one we gave them too much time. But normally, our contractors are pretty good. A council member many years ago asked me, what's the one thing you would do if you were king of the world when it comes to transportation? I said, let me pick the contractors to build our projects, because there's some really good ones out there. Unfortunately, they do bid our jobs. There's some not so good ones out there. So we do have inspectors that continue to follow and push, but it really is up to these private contractors to build the end product per the specifications, and unfortunately, we don't always have a lot of control over them.
Okay,
And so, thank you for your patience ahead of time. Appreciate it.
this is about, I guess, the economy and the impact on neighborhoods. Yes, we are getting high dollars for our houses, but the purchasers are not residing in the home, but are renting them out. Are we as single-family homes and all of our houses becoming apartment buildings? And can anything be done about this? It's sort of a money.
So this clearly has been a challenge, not only in Bellevue, but in the communities, I think, in the central Puget Sound area, where we are seeing people purchasing homes for investment purposes. And there's nothing that prohibits that in the city. There's nothing that prohibits renting it to a single family home to a family. But it is an area where we have seen instances where that boundary of what's a family has been pushed, and we've had issues related to kind of homes becoming boarding homes. The council actually, about 2 years ago, implemented some more restrictive regulations that allow us to really ensure that those homes are being used as single-family homes in our neighborhoods. But there's nothing that prevents somebody from investing in properties in the city, whether they live in the city or live elsewhere, in the region or in the world for that matter. So that is a phenomenon that really has impacted the city and impacted the region, and it has been a point of conversation. But it's a hard one to really get our arms around as far as how you would regulate who's actually purchasing the homes. So that's a tough one, but we do pay close attention to how homes are being used to ensure that they're being used for their intended purposes.
Thank you. I think it's on a different card. I think I read it from a different card, Albert.
Okay, I don't think you got to my question, though. Just checking to see if you wanted to use that as a follow-up.
I think I read a different card, but I will find yours. Just give me a second. But I guess if I'm going to paraphrase the question, the intent of the question is, what is being looked at in terms of the level of foreign investment?
So the question is, if City Council approved, what are the logistical and legal issues with taxing foreign ownership or foreign purchases of single-family residences? And how could we also regulate or otherwise tax homes that are vacant that are foreign owned?
Let us, we'll need to follow up with you on that particular question. That's a very complicated question and issue.
Okay, so one of the things that I notice is there are a number of questions here, but I'm going to answer this one. Does the city, Mike M's department, meet regularly with reps from community associations? The answer to that is yes. And we have neighborhood liaisons by neighborhood area as well that are listed online, so you can find out who your main point of contact is. And we are able to work with associations in terms of connecting to the right staff that might address the particular issue or concern that you have in your neighborhood. So if you have something going on in your neighborhood where you're like, I want to ask the city about public safety, we can connect that to make sure that that happens, just like a utilities question or a question regarding trees. So that answers that question. I want to make sure that we have ample time as well out in the concourse. What I've noticed in a number of these questions is that they're specific to streets or locations as well. And I think those are also going to be best handled individually as you talk to folks and make sure that they flag the individual requests and can provide follow-up on those concerns too. What we're going to do is we're going to break. We have little name things or identifiers around the tables for public safety, for finance, for transportation, for utilities, kind of for this whole crew, and recognize our police officers here. We have Major Kleineck, we have Captain Popachok, and we have Travis Farbush. Todd Dickerboom for fire is also here. He's our new fire chief, so make sure you introduce yourself to him, and his crews will save your life. All right? So feel free to go to the place where your question is. Continue the conversation. Thank you so much to the panel for answering our questions. Let's keep this going.
We can take these questions and